What happens when your sweet, elderly landlord hides a horrifying secret? In a quiet Sacramento neighborhood, an unassuming Victorian home masked a dark truth. A truth buried beneath the garden. This is the story of Dorothea Puente, a woman who seemed like everyone's grandmother, until her backyard started giving up its secrets. Dorothea Helen Puente was born in 1929 in Redlands, California. Her childhood was troubled, marked by trauma, abandonment, and survival. By the time she was a teenager, she had already begun a life of manipulation and crime. But no one could have predicted how far she would go. In her 20s and 30s, Puente bounced between identities, marriages, and fraud convictions. She was arrested several times for forging checks, running a brothel, and drugging elderly people to steal from them. She spent years perfecting a persona, a kind, soft-spoken caretaker with snow-white hair and old-fashioned manners. She fooled everyone. By the 1980s, Dorothea owned a boarding house in downtown Sacramento. She took in vulnerable tenants, many of them elderly, mentally ill, or recovering from addiction. She offered warm meals, a place to stay, and even helped them with government paperwork. But there was a catch. She insisted on handling their Social Security checks herself. Over time, tenants began to vanish. Dorothea always had an excuse. They moved out. They went to live with relatives. They didn't want to stay. No one questioned her. She was, after all, just a sweet old woman. But behind closed doors, the truth was more horrifying than anyone imagined. In 1988, a social worker named Judy began investigating the disappearance of a tenant, Alvaro Bert Montoya. Bert had developmental disabilities, and Dorothea was supposed to be his guardian. When Judy couldn't find him, she contacted the police. Detectives visited the house and found Dorothea polite, cooperative, even grandmotherly. But something felt off. After receiving a tip, police began to dig in the backyard. First, they found scraps of clothing. Then, they hit something solid. What they uncovered was a decomposing body, wrapped in cloth and buried beneath the dirt. As the smell worsened and the soil was turned, more bodies surfaced. 7 in total. Each one a former tenant. Each one betrayed by someone they trusted. While the backyard became a crime scene, Dorothea casually told officers she was going to get a cup of coffee. She never came back. Instead, she fled the state, heading to Los Angeles. There, she checked into a motel and tried to blend in. But fate had other plans. At a bar in LA, Dorothea struck up a conversation with an older man. Unbeknownst to her, he recognized her from a news segment and contacted police. She was arrested shortly after and returned to Sacramento in handcuffs. Even then, she maintained her innocence. In 1993, Dorothea Puente stood trial for 9 murders. The courtroom heard tales of poisoning, forged checks, and manipulation. Her defense argued that she only buried the bodies, not killed them. But the evidence was overwhelming. She was convicted of 3 murders and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Dorothea Puente died in prison in 2011 at the age of 82. She never confessed. Her house still stands today, a silent monument to betrayal and horror. She looked like a sweet grandmother, but behind that gentle smile lurks one of the most cold-hearted killers in California history. If you found this case as haunting as we did, subscribe for more deep dives into real true crime cases. Until next time, stay safe and trust your instincts.